Let's bring in former National Nighttime Talkback radio host, now working in the health space and assisting veterans after their service, Jim Ball. Welcome to the Super Radio Network, Jim.
Yeah, hi again, Chris. I was just listening to that lady on the flag, and I thought she really needs to know what she's talking about before she starts getting on the radio. It was England, Wales and Scotland, not Ireland. Ireland didn't come in. It was
did she say Ireland, did she? I missed that.
Yeah, she did twice.
Right.
And Ireland only came in 1921. And the crosses are, what was it, St. George, St. Andrew and St. Patrick. So, and then she mentioned Peter Harcher, Sydney Morning Herald, and I'm thinking, oh, yeah, okay, now I know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
My line on that is it true or was it in the Sydney Morning Herald?
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, imagine getting rid of the Union Jack, because what it would be doing is just wiping out and smudging out one of the most transformational passages of our history. Why would you do that?
Well, I'll tell you why you would do it. Not I would do it, but why they would do it is because that's exactly what they want to do, Chris. Yeah. They want to wipe out our history.
Yeah. Cancel culture.
And as you said to that lady, others, and look, Captain Phillip, before he came round from Botany Bay, came round and went into Port Jackson, he passed the French chap, can't think of the name of the suburb, named after him.
La Perouse.
He was La Perouse, coming into Botany Bay as Phillip was going out of Botany Bay. That's how close it was that we became French.
And I've got to say, and this is nothing against current French individuals, and certainly not against those who are running the country, but certainly in terms of history, there are arguments that would say that if the French took us over, we would have had a bloodbath and Indigenous Australians would have been killed left, right and centre. Yeah,
absolutely right. But so those that want to change the flag, they also want to change. They want to they want to retrospectively. There's a phrase for it. It's about deleting history.
Yeah.
It's called stealth editing.
Yep. Now, there'll be no change to our migrant numbers, we were told yesterday by Tony Burke, but Labor MPs are being told not to demonise those who attended Sunday's rallies. This might come back to bite them a little bit, Jim.
Yeah, like that Western Australian Premier, former or current, I'm not sure, Roger, he said that you had to be a racist if you were against immigration. Look, I'm not sure the actual numbers of the runaway train in this debate, as everyone thinks they are. Despite the supposedly informed scribes and what they're saying in terms of net migration, 185,000 is not. They're saying it's historically high. I'm telling them it is not historically high. Yes, it's another Townsville or another Gosford city every 12 months. That's a given. But in 2018, we had 239,600. In 2014-15, 182,200. And in 2008-9, we had 298,900. So I just wish some of these people would do a bit of homework, a bit of research, a few keystrokes, that's all, nothing much. Look, the difference between then and now is our greater capacity to accommodate. And by way of contrast, in 2000, our immigration was 99,100. So just short of 100,000.
Yeah, and in the financial year 24, I've got the figures here, the actual net overseas migration for financial year 24 was 430,496, well above the budget forecast of 395,000.
So they're not historic. 185,000 is not historically high. What is different now, though, is our ability to absorb the numbers, particularly in our capital cities. Immigration, it ought to be subjected to the same rigours of an economic cost-benefit analysis as any other major project. And look, Chris, I keep coming back to, and I think I've mentioned this before, my running a bath analogy that I used to use in my previous line of work, where you have to have the right mix of hot and cold water to keep the temperature in that just right Goldilocks zone. As it cools, you add a bit more hot. As it gets hotter, you add a bit more hot. You get the picture. And for the people in Sunday's march, they weren't against immigration as such.
Despite what mainstream media said the march was all about.
They were against the immigration policy.
Yeah. Mass immigration. For
them, it's personal. Economically, it was about housing availability and affordability.
Yep.
It was about schools and jobs and roads and hospitals and the impact on their lives at a personal level. Then, of course, there's the extra drawdown into the future on an already precarious energy grid with an increasing reliance on renewables.
Yeah.
And Chris, that's exactly right. It's not just about the 185,000 people. It's got to be 185,000 of the right people with the right skills, people that are a cultural fit with the right attitude to Western and Australian values and ideals, freedom of speech, religion, all that kind of thing, mores and so on. And they want to be here for what Australia offers and not bring their baggage from wherever they come to make us the hellhole from which they left.
Spot on. And the generosity continues, Jim. We're now removing those traitorous ISIS brides out of Syria to return to the country they abandoned. Apparently, we're also bringing their new partners as well. All must be forgiven.
Well, look, I'm a bit funny on this one. It's probably not quite the homecoming, not quite the all-conquering theatrical denouement that is the final part of the movie where it all comes together and things are resolved. It's not quite the ending that they envisaged or that they anticipated when they embarked on their own personal crusade, or dare I say jihad, of globalising the Intifada. Look, I'm all for giving people a shot at redemption, and we can only hope that when they do arrive back in Australia, that they'll have internalised the lessons of their folly, gained some valuable insights, deeper understandings of just who are the good guys and who are the bad guys, and particularly that Australia is not such a bad place after all. Maybe, look, just maybe, with their own story, they'll sign up to Team Australia and use their experience as examples of what not to do. But I suspect I may be expecting too much.
Yep. An interesting twist in Question Time yesterday. Liberal Dan Tehan wanted to know why the Prime Minister was chased out of Ballarat after the Bush summit last week, and Paul Dan was then chased out of the House. Have a listen to this.
Why was the Prime Minister chased out of Ballarat by tractors? The Prime Minister was chased out.
As I said, this was a protest against a project in which the member for Hume also said the development of interconnectors and transmission is critical to bringing new generation capacity into the energy system. Thousands of kilometres of new transmission is likely to be needed to connect new generation. That is what the member for Hume said when he was the minister responsible. Now, what I did in Ballarat was front up, be honest, tell people...
The Prime Minister's going to pause. The member for Wannon, you've been here long enough. Those sorts of... Don't point to other people. You're going to leave the chamber. No, you're going to leave the chamber under 94A. No. Order. If the member does not leave immediately, I will name him.
So, run out of the House, but the truth is the Prime Minister was run out of town because of the renewable rollout.
Of course, watching the tractors, it was reminiscent of that stuff you see in France, where the farmers take to their tractors.
In the city,
Look, why did Albo get run out of Ballarat? Well, let me count the ways. It's not hard. Between Albo and Bowen, I made this point yesterday on my Facebook and X, it's hard to decide which has the most punchable face in Australia, to be honest. And it's not just the policies of migration and net zero and their intransigence on both. It's their sheer arrogance, their omniscience, their know-allness, if you like, and that both of these people are operating so far above their pay grade, Chris. They're a collective insult to the national intelligence. Look, an old radio mate of mine, you know him as well, asked me on Sunday if this period is worse than the Fraser Whitlam years of 75, to which I responded most definitely, much, much worse. Look, in 75, the Fraser Whitlam imbroglio It was contained to Canberra. It was a typical red team, blue team thing over some dodgy dealings by Whitlam's Minister for Minerals and Energy, Rex Connor, with a shady Pakistani commodities dealer, Tirith Kamlani. They were after $4 billion. In those days, big money. Today, it's the stuff in the glove box in the ashtray. It was called the Loans Affair. And just as a sidebar, if Connor were actually alive today, he wouldn't be left-wing Labor. He'd be Nationals and One Nation. I mean, he really he wanted to make Australia totally independent in terms of minerals and energy, and he had an eye for nuclear as well. So we could have been there many, many years ago. Look, back in 75, at least in Fraser years before he went wobbly with all his left-wing stuff, we had a functional and a very competitive opposition. We had head kickers like Jim Killen, Doug Anthony, Peter Nixon was another one, and there were quite a few others as well. Today, what has people fired up though, Chris, is it's like wrestling with smoke. It's everywhere but nowhere. They see a political mindset that is on a mission and determined to cripple a country with a managed economic and social decline in both our collective and individual fortunes. And now they're talking about taxing spare bedrooms. The people are radiating rage. They're angry, and this is all manifesting itself in what could be best described as a state of impotent rage. Anger with everything, but no idea what to do about any of it. They're angry and they're lashing out over immigration, energy costs, housing, the problems of which are all caused by politicians and government policy. People are switched on and know they're being conned and lied to, and they find themselves in a state of total, absolute foot-stomping, impotent rage. They're screaming into the void, no one's listening, like Albo, no one cares. And that's what the marches were all about. They're angry about a lot, but know that for now at least they're stuck with what they've got. A majority of Labor and a bunch of panty-waist, feckless Liberals. No one's coming to save us, Chris. There's no cavalry coming over the hill anytime soon.
Not at all.
That is why Albo was run out of Ballarat. The snivelling, weaselly little commie is detested and despised.
Good to talk with you, Jim. We can follow your random notes, by the way, for those who would like to follow what Jim posts on a daily basis. jimball.com.au, random notes. Thank you, mate. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Chris.